was a truck driver in April of 2005, driving a dedicated run from Miraloma, California to Northern California, delivering frozen food to Walmart stores. I was traveling east on Interstate 80 up and over Donner Summit and into the Sierra Nevada mountains close to the Nevada border. There's 2 lanes going east and 2 lanes going west with a 4-foot concrete center divider in the middle that separates the 2 lanes. I was traveling east in the far right lane when I noticed about 100 yards ahead and approaching fast something brown in the middle of the road. As I got closer, I saw that it was hairy and standing on top of the center divider. When I was only 25 yards away, it stepped off the center divider and in 2 strides was standing on the shoulder of the road when I passed it. I thought it was a dude in a monkey suit at first, but there's no good argument in my head that it wasn't. First, it was too tall and way too big to be a guy in a monkey suit. The way it moved and looked was pure power. It was definitely proportionate to its size and weight. Have you ever watched a video of a silverback gorilla run across its enclosure? Well, I wouldn't want to be standing in front of that big bastard. It would be like standing in front of my truck. Neither way, you'll be in a world of hurt. That's how powerful this thing looked. When I passed it, I got a better look at it. I only saw the right side profile and outer shoulders and back of the shoulders. Its skin was black and the hair was long off the shoulders and a little thin in the back, and it had reddish brown hair. It was so tall that I could see it for a brief second from my driver's seat looking out across the passenger side window. I didn't see its face or even notice its head. I used to tell anyone who would listen that I had seen a Bigfoot, but the reaction from people deterred me from that after a while. It would be like cutting a big fart during a job interview. People think you're crazy, so I don't tell anyone anymore. Y'all ever seen the movie Step Brothers? It's kind of a corny, cheesy movie, but they do that in the movie, and it is so funny. Anyway, back to the story. I'm not even sure if what I saw was a real Bigfoot. Hell, it really could have been a dude in a monkey suit. I was once asked, do you wish you could have seen it up close? And my answer was, hell no. I was safe in the cab of my Freightliner. My driver mentor told me that you're going to see some weird, scary things on the road. And he was right. Thanks for your channel and the hours of entertainment when I binge listened to Dixiecryptid. Oh man, thanks for binge listening. Truck drivers, I've said it before, that's who's in my mind when I'm recording these. I can see them driving down these highways and roads and delivering their freight at night, and there's just nothing to do, and all the lights are shining in their face from the dash, and all they're left with is their thoughts, and it's really good to listen to some things that'll entertain you and make the time go by. By the way, on the Spreaker app, I have found several good podcasts. I'm going to give you a couple of names of them. Y'all can write them down or bookmark. I don't know. Just try to remember what I'm saying. But I like true crime podcasts. And there's a podcast my wife and I have been listening to that's really good. It's called, now I can't remember the name of it. Campfire True Crime, I think it is. If you go to the Spreaker app, if you download the Spreaker, Spreaker, Spreaker app from the Play Store or your Apple Store, and look up Campfire True Crime or True Crime Campfire. It's one of the others. It's one of the other, but it's really good. It's 2 women who narrate crime episodes, and they're funny, and they give this funny commentary, and they find the weirdest things. There's another one called Morbidology. The woman it's a true crime podcast, and the woman who does it she's got a strange accent, like she has an Irish accent, but she's tried to correct it. Maybe she hasn't, and I've just never heard this accent before, but it's really pretty. She has a beautiful voice, and her recordings are flawless. They're not like mine, where I go off on these tangents like this and from a Bigfoot story talking about true crime podcast. What squirrel? But it's anyway, I wanted to let y'all know that it just popped in my mind. Go to Spreaker, check out some of their true crime podcasts, and I think you'll be happy. It's great listening, especially for the truck drivers. You guys would love this stuff. It's some of the most odd true crime stuff I've ever heard. And there's, I'll tell you, I have some other ones I listen to, and I'll tell you some more as time goes on. But this writer of this email, his name is Tony. He said, you can use my name. I don't give a damn what people think now. And then this is the very first sentence he says, so here's my story. So Tony, thanks for sending this email. That's a cool story. I love these drive-by. It's kind of like a drive-by Bigfoot story. Appreciate you, buddy. All right, here's a Bigfoot story you guys are going to love. It's not very long, but it's really good. The writer says, I'm a retired Navy chief, and I have visited over 100 countries, and I've circumnavigated the world 3 times, twice by sea and once by air. Oh man, that's awesome. In 1983, I had just moved back to the Outer Banks of North Carolina. I was stationed at Little Creek, Virginia. In July, my brother-in-law asked my family if we wanted to go on a fishing vacation in Canada for a week. I took 10 days leave, and my wife and 2 children, Ben and Cindy, all piled into my 1973 Vega GT, pulling my 14-foot aluminum boat and motor, and we drove to I can't pronounce this name, Senature, Quebec, Canada. Correct me in the comments, I know you will. The last 300 miles of the trip was on a gravel road, and the car I was driving didn't have air conditioning. It made for a long, hard drive. When we got there, we rented 2 cabins for 4 adults and 5 children, and we settled in and began our fishing holiday. Fishing the lakes was great, and we were having a great time. On the 3rd day, my brother-in-law asked if I'd like to go sturgeon fishing on the river that fed the lake. Any type of fishing is just my game, so I said, heck yeah, let's go. For this excursion, we rented a 25-foot boat with a wide beam because the water was so swift. We took my nephews, Stevie and Mike, and we left my son behind because he was too young. We got on the river about 2100 hours, and man, was that water moving. It was so fast that we had to use 2 anchors to hold the boat. I was in the stern, and my brother-in-law Tom was in the bow. And all night long, we could hear fish breaking water all around us. The fish were strong, and the challenge was great. I had just broken a deep-sea rod with a 30-pound test line on it. I changed tackle and immediately hooked into a monster. And after a battle, I landed an 18-pound sturgeon. And if you've ever caught a large sturgeon, you know how they fight. From that point, and for an hour, the fish stopped biting. I was leaning back and relaxing while the others fished. I had pulled in my line so one of my nephews could have a better chance of catching a fish. Now, when a fish jumps, there are 2 different sounds. One when he breaks the water and one when he re-enters the water. I realized that someone was throwing large rocks at the boat because it was just the sound of a rock entering the water with a kerplunk. I said as much to my brother-in-law, and he said he noticed it too, but he wasn't positive, so he didn't say anything. And then he said, "Hand me my rifle." Hoping it was a prankster, it would scare him away, and my nephew Mike said in a terrified voice, "We don't have a rifle, Uncle Ben." Well, I had brought a large 6-cell flashlight with us, so standing up in the bow, I held the flashlight up in the air and I swept the bank. A large head with glowing eyes ducked behind the bushes. We immediately pulled up the anchors and lines and got the hell out of there. And while we traveled back to the dock, my brother-in-law, who had been there numerous times, remembered an incident that apparently came to mind after seeing this creature. A few years back, he and some of his friends had found a mature male black bear dead near their cabins. Its legs were in weird positions like they had been broken or dislocated. And what was more terrifying was that its head had been twisted 180 degrees and rested on its back, its neck broken, and its head hanging free. Well, this story heightened the fear that we were going through at that moment, and I told him to get us back to the dock as fast as he could. The following day, we went back to the place where the encounter occurred, and the bushes it ducked behind were 7 feet high. That sent a chill down my spine. We never knew what it was, but whatever it was over 7 feet tall. The next day, my engine blew in the Vega, so all 9 of us climbed into my brother-in-law's 1964 reconditioned Chevy Impala 2-door, and we drove to their home in New Jersey. That in itself was a great adventure. Well, Cam, that just about does it. Maybe I'll tell you about my next Bigfoot encounter that we may have had at our home in North Carolina. You can use this and all the names if you wish. Thanks for all you do, Ben. Well, Ben, thank you for the story. That's a scary story. That reminds me of a documentary. I think I saw it on, maybe the History Channel. Anyway, I think they were in Alaska. These guys were fishing off the bank in Alaska, and this huge grizzly bear was standing in the water. I may have told this before. And normally I would say, if I have, stop me. But you can't stop me because I'm recording this, so you got to listen to it. These guys were fishing, and they saw this huge grizzly bear just kind of wandering around on the bank, maybe looking for some scraps to eat. I don't know. But they were watching the grizzly bear. Suddenly, the grizzly bear lifts up on its hind legs and turns behind it. And then it runs like hell away down the bank and back up into the woods. And about then, they say they saw a Bigfoot walk out and stand on the bank. And they watched it for several minutes. Anyway, I don't remember the rest of the story, but what I know is the grizzly bear is the apex predator in grizzly bear country. And this grizzly bear ran like crazy when this Bigfoot walked out on the bank, or he knew it was coming and he hightailed it out of there because I guess he knew he was in danger. Anyway, the story about the bear with its head twisted back and dead and its legs broken reminded me of that story. And so if Bigfoot is real and they're that bad, bears are scared of them. That's my take on it. Everything is afraid of these things. So anyway, Ben, thanks for the story. Hope I didn't mess it up there with that last little anecdote, but it just came to mind. And you know me, if I think about it, I say it. You just got to deal with it. All right, let's go to another story. All right, this is a story I got in my email inbox probably a year or 2 ago. I've kind of held it. I don't know why I've held it, but anyway, I came across it again and I want to share it with you guys. I do not know if it's true, but it's a good story, and the writer is a very good writer. And here's what he writes. My name is Robert, and I'm a 37-year-old homeless man living on the streets of Skid Row near the Arts District in Los Angeles. At 37, I may still be a young man, but looking at me, you would think I was closer to 60. My hair is prematurely gray, and my skin is weathered and wrinkled from years of drug and alcohol abuse and from the rigors of living on the streets for the last 7 years. This, however, was not always the case. I was once a promising young executive working for a prominent advertising firm and had just bought a new townhouse on the west side, and I was engaged to be married to the girl of my dreams. This was 10 years ago, and in some ways it seems like just yesterday. In others, it seems more like a lifetime ago. It was my 27th birthday, and I had much to celebrate. I was heading an ad campaign for a new client which launched earlier in the week and by all indications was a huge success. Escrow had closed on my new townhouse. It wasn't exactly new, but it was new to me, and I was set to move in the next week. Tanya, my fiancée, had the next 2 weeks off for spring break, and this worked out perfectly because she was eager to start moving our belongings from our apartment to our new townhouse. Tanya was working on her PhD in psychology at UCLA and still had 2 semesters left before graduating. And Tanya had arranged a surprise birthday party for me. She pretended to forget that it was my birthday and told me that we had to attend her friend's art show at a loft in the Arts District. My friend Phil accidentally let the cat out of the bag one day while we were at lunch. He told me to tell Tanya that he couldn't make it to the party because he had to go out of town on business. Apparently, he didn't know it was supposed to be a surprise party. He felt bad about it, but I told him not to worry. I already suspected something was up when Tanya never mentioned anything about my birthday. She wasn't the type of person to forget those things. I assured Phil that I would act totally surprised when the time came. On the night of my 27th birthday, both Tanya and I were running late because most of our clothes had already been packed in boxes in preparation for the move. Tanya seemed a bit frantic, saying that we had to be there by 7:30. So I played the part of the ignorant boyfriend, and I asked Tanya, why do we have to be there by 7:30? And all she said was hurry up and get ready. By 7:15, we were dressed and in the car. Luckily, traffic was light that evening, and it took us about 15 minutes to drive from the west side to the Arts District. Apparently, there was some type of event going on in Little Tokyo which resulted in congested traffic and made it nearly impossible to find parking in the adjacent Arts District. All the parking structures were full and there wasn't a single spot available on the street, and I could see that Tanya was getting anxious as we kept driving around the block. I told her that I could drop her off and I would find parking a little further south and walk back to the Arts District to meet her, but she insisted on staying with me and saying that it was a little rough down that way and that I would need her protection. Well, we both laughed a bit as we proceeded to drive south of the Arts District. Now, this actually was a pretty rough part of town made up of mostly old warehouses. There were plenty of homeless people in the area. We finally found our parking spot near an old rundown building next to a liquor store. I felt fairly safe parking there because there were plenty of nice cars parked around us. They were all doing the same as us, parking in the area and walking back to Little Tokyo or to the Arts District. As soon as we got out of the car, we were struck by the overpowering smell of urine. We were half a block away from a homeless encampment, and there were a few intimidating people in the area. A light rain started to fall, so I looked in the back seat, and luckily my niece left her Dora the Explorer umbrella from the last time I drove her to school, and we both shared the space under it as we walked north toward the Arts District. As we walked past the liquor store, a homeless man standing on the sidewalk was staring directly at us. I was thinking of stopping to give the man a couple of bucks, but Tanya pulled my arm to keep me walking. She said that normally I would stop and help someone in need, but there's something about that man that's making me feel uneasy, because we're already late, too. We picked up our pace a bit as I glanced behind us, and the man by the liquor store was walking toward us. And when he saw me look back, I heard him yell something. His pace quickened, so we started walking faster. He began yelling louder and began running. And I told Tanya to run, and as we headed down the street, I looked back again and the man was still chasing us. I yelled at Tanya to make a turn at the next alley because I knew it led to a much busier street, and we would be much safer around the other people. But halfway down the alley, Tanya tripped and fell to her knees, and I stopped to help her back up, and as I looked back, the man had turned the corner and was at the mouth of the alley. We made a sprint toward the end of the alley, but Tanya was limping, and I told Tanya to keep going and not look back. I gave her just a small push to get her going, and if she could make it to the end of the alley and out into the street, she would be safe. I picked up a bottle from the ground and turned to confront the man, and as I did, I heard the sickening sound of brakes screeching, followed by a dull thud. And as I looked up the alley, I could only see the side of a red sedan stopped on the street at the end of the alley, and I screamed out Tanya's name, and a moment later I heard my own voice echo strangely in the alley, and I dropped the bottle and ran to the end of the alley, and there lying on the pavement was Tanya. I quickly ran to her and cradled her in my arms, but it was no use. Tanya was gone. That moment marked the turning point in my life. I was never quite the same person after that. I soon turned to alcohol to fill the void left in my life, but that didn't help. I began using drugs, and that seemed to help me forget, but only temporarily. I began missing more and more days of work until eventually they had to let me go. And with no source of income, I soon lost my townhouse. Without Tanya to share the townhouse with me, it didn't seem to matter much anyway. I stayed with friends here and there, but being constantly drunk or high, I soon wore out my welcome, and I lived in my car for a time until it was repossessed. The next thing you know, I'm living out on the street. I don't know why I chose this area to live. Perhaps being close to the place where Tanya died seemed fitting. The first few years of living on the street was difficult. In the beginning, I tried to maintain some sense of self-dignity. I would bathe regularly at the Union Rescue Mission, and I washed my clothes once a week at the laundromat, and I tried to stay at a motel whenever I could. But after a while, though, it just seemed easier to let myself go. There is a sort of freedom when you're no longer concerned with cleanliness or personal hygiene. The only thing that concerned me was getting high. I applied for disability a couple of years ago, and each month the government sends me a check. The checks are mailed to the liquor store, where the owner is kind enough to receive the checks and cash them for me. Between the disability checks and occasionally panhandling, I have enough to keep myself drunk or high most of the time. Yesterday was my 37th birthday, exactly 10 years to the day that my life changed forever, and somehow I relived the worst day of my life. Not just metaphorically, but I actually relived it. And when I woke up, I knew it was the 10th anniversary of that tragic day, and I will never be able to forget it because it will always fall on my birthday. On this particular birthday, I wanted so hard to forget, so I started drinking for the moment I woke. I drank all morning until around noon, and then I fell asleep on a bus bench. I slept all day until I was awakened by light rainfall. Now, this is just perfect, I thought to myself. What an appropriate way to cap off my birthday. I picked up my bottle of vodka to take a swig when I saw the bottle was empty. Damn, I really need a drink, I thought. I started walking to the liquor store when I noticed a girl who looked exactly like Tanya. Wait a minute, that is Tanya, and she's walking with me, I thought. 27-year-old me. She was walking with 27-year-old me. A couple were walking down the street right past me under an umbrella, and I was in shock, and all I could do was stare at them. I don't know how, but somehow it was 10 years ago. It was witnessing the events of my 27th birthday. This was my chance. If I could alter the course of events over the next few minutes, I could get a second chance at life that was taken away from me. And I called out to them, but they started walking away faster. I didn't have much time, and I started running and yelling out for them to come back. And when they saw me running, they started to run. And I kept desperately trying to call them back when they turned into an alley. Oh no, I thought, it's happening all over again. And I ran down to the entrance of the alley and I stopped. I didn't want them to see me running after them, but it was too late. And I heard that sickening sound of brakes screeching and that awful dull thud, and I yelled out Tanya's name, but I already knew what had happened. The next thing I knew, I woke up on the bus bench. It was the morning after my 37th birthday. Was that all a bad dream? It seemed so real. I rubbed the sleep out of my eyes, and as I looked down at the bench I was sleeping on, lying next to an empty bottle of vodka, was a Dora the Explorer umbrella. Was it a bizarre coincidence? Was it also odd that this is the first time in many years that I don't have the urge to drink or get high? None at all. In fact, I have decided that I'm going to clean myself up, buy some fresh clothes, and get a haircut. I know the mission has some resources to help find jobs for people willing to work. Maybe I'm getting a second chance after all. Wasn't that last story good? I think it's fiction. I think it is, but it may not be. And it's I'm a believer in the Bible and in Jesus, and maybe sometimes God uses these kind of experiences to wake someone up or to get them to accept what has happened in their life and accept the suffering that goes along with being a believer. Anyway, I just thought it was a great story. It was written really well. And if it's true, I hope this guy's life has taken a better turn. And if it's fiction, to the writer, you have a great imagination and you should keep writing. I really appreciate it. Anyway, thank you all for listening to this podcast. It wasn't as long as some of the others, but that last story, there was no need to do another one. It's kind of a moving little story. I don't know. Maybe I'm a little emotional after reading that, but I thought it was good. Okay, I'm going to end this podcast now. Thanks for listening. We'll see you guys on the next one.